So good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Hong Kong Life Science Society Weekend Sharing. Today's sharing topic is navigating the biotech industry landscape in mainland China and career opportunities for students. I'm Yuanbiao Mao, MC of today and an intern for Morningside Shanghai. So today, we're delighted to invite Ms Gladdy He, the member of the HKLSS Advisory Board and founder and CEO of Become Consulting. She will discuss with us the developments in workforce requirements in China and offer tips on how everyone may prepare for today's competitive job market. So Ms. Gladdy He founded Become Consulting with the vision and mission to develop top global organizations and leaders from China. Previously, she was the senior client partner and APAC managing director of life sciences practice at Korn Ferry. She led the team across executive search, RPO, and leadership consulting and achieved superior business growth in 10 years. Let's welcome Gladdy with a round of applause.
Thank you. I can see you're very well prepared with all the cards. Can you see me okay? I just want to make sure the lights are not always on my face. Yep, good, good. I wonder, you feel comfortable in English or Chinese? 中文还是英文？你们都可以吗？ You want to switch to English? Okay, because I was told in Chinese. That's okay. It's really my great honor to see you, to see the young faces and see, the eyes full of hopes and sparks. I'm not used to very frequently giving speech to the younger people or fresh grad or before you even graduated. I was invited to give CVOs and the very senior people, but you're the future. Imagine the seed and the fire that in your valley, and one day you'll become the global CEO. One day you'll become the top senior scientist. So with that, I think my sharing might bear the fruit in the future. So I really want to take this advantage to share with you the latest market situation and as well as what you could do to find a job. So how many of you want to find a job? Raise your hand. Yeah, you all want to find a job, right? And then pay off your tuitions and have a good lifestyle. How many of you want to find a job in China, mainland China? Okay, yeah, more than half of you. So that means we have to learn what's going on in the market, not only the trends, but also what's going on in the people dynamics and the corporate, or even in the investment environment. Okay, with that, and I will kickstart. I would invite you for questions. And at any time, if you feel there's things you don't understand, need clarifications, raise your hand, let me know. All right. So let me try this. Okay, I have to go a little bit closer. Thank you, you already done enough of the introduction. So I started the new company a year and a half ago with a mission and a vision to help to build the new generation of the leadership and recruitment firms, which is help the company that is fast growing and transformative to go global. So our vision is to develop 100 global CEO and 100 global companies in the near term. And how do we do that? We need to really know what's going on in the market, build the talent base, accelerate organization growth. So we work with all the companies you interned, you just mentioned. All right, with that, let me share with you. We did a survey lately and we asked them, what career advice would you like to hear? And here's predominantly a lot of young people want to know, what is my career development? I think this might not be immediately relevant because most of you want to know, how do I do interview? How do I find a job, right? But even before you make that decision, you have to think about, how do I invest my time in the next 3 to 5 years? So that it's not just for a job or paycheck. It's something that you find affiliated to and you find passionate about, something very important. And then they also ask about solutions to difficult problems and compensation and as well as, assessment of the improvements, etc. Of course, if we look at the overall China, this is what we get. And China is huge, and they have the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 cities, and have the north and south. When you eat the food, you know the difference. Yeah, hot food and noodles in the north, and Cantonese food. So we look at the differences. So the first tier city, a lot of young people care about career planning. And a second tier city, which is more like, we could say Suzhou, we could see Xi'an, Wuhan, the other cities, and very populated, but they're not as close to and as advanced as a top tier city. So the people care about social networking. And the second, or and the below, is skill improvement, which is actually reflected reality. Because the more you close to the top tier cities, and there are more resources and availabilities, and they were like you being exposed to a lot of ideas and opportunities. Hence, it's quite important to already moving step up. And whilst for the lower tier cities, they are not exposed to so many development opportunities, and they're still struggling or feeling their way on, okay, what do I need to do for the basic stuff? So quite interesting. And biotech industry, because I assume you all related to the healthcare or biotech. So we talk specifically on the biotech industry, and biotech industry and the clusters. You probably have some idea, right? There are 4 main clusters. Mostly well known is in Yangtze River Delta, which is centered in Shanghai and around Shanghai, including like Suzhou, Hangzhou, and all the surrounding satellite cities. This is the largest biotech places. And just Zhangjiang alone, where we're standing or sitting, and there are already over thousands of the biotech companies established since the late 90s and early 2000s. And then there's a Bohai Rim. I just heard this term, but without a doubt, around Beijing. And then spread it around the Tianjin, Hebei, and all those areas. So Beijing has a lot of development park because the concentration of the research institute and the universities like Zhongguancun, like Zhongkeyuan, and Tsinghua, Beida, etc. And because of that, it has a lot of, not only for biotech, but also concentration on AI, on new technology, previously on digital e-commerce development. So that is also critical places. And then the third cluster is Pearl Delta River, which is close to home to you, right? And now I think maybe there's another terminology called a Greater Bay Area. And that's extension of the Pearl Delta, and including Macau, including Hong Kong, etc. So for this area, recently, there are a lot of injection of the capital and also means to attract good people and talent into the area. Historically, we've seen, and not necessarily the biotech, but we can see it's starting with the manufacturing of the electronics, and also with a lot of big company having MRI imaging, medtech, IVD in business. But recently, given that Guangzhou have the Bio Island, Hong Kong has a Hong Kong Development Park, and Shenzhen built up their institution. Zhuhai also have a preferential policy. We can see this area, Pearl Delta area, soon will be stronger competition to the previously established area. And we have the Midwest. It's here where you like the hot pot, right? And that's more of a hot pot place. Even the Wuhan food is hot. So we're talking about Wuhan, Sichuan, and Hunan, Sichuan area, right? They're more innerland. So for this region, I think previously it's more around manufacturing, and in CMC, CDMO, manufacturing hub. And in recent years, given the development of healthcare And there are a lot of hospital established, and also with the rapid expansion and growing of the public hospital. With the hospital, you know what we can do? CRO services, clinical trial, clinical development. So recently we see a lot of companies move their R&D center to Chengdu, to Chongqing, and still, I think Wuhan is famous for its manufacturing base for CDMO, CMC. Okay, so this 3-4 clustered, each has its unique specialties and focus, but yet we can tell they're growing. But again, like the first 2-3 are more tier 1, tier 2 cities, more developed, with more populations, more talent, and with the Midwest, they have a bit of, but of course, lower cost, but have its challenges in attract talent. Good lifestyle though, less cutting throat. So when you think about opportunity, think about where you want to be, and everywhere has opportunities. And I hope this does not shock you. And people do not want to talk about it. But I think I should share with you the reality. There's a glamour side with China, but there's also a very competitive reality. I've never seen such high unemployment rate in the last 20 years, maybe 30 years. Yeah, 20 some years. In the late 90s, probably before you were even born, China been through the structural changes, and that's when a lot of state-owned enterprises laying off people, doing a restructuring. That's when we see the high unemployment rate. But recently, there are also high unemployment rate for young people, fresh grad, and close to 20%, which means 3 million students, fresh graduate students, undergrad, master's degree, or PhD are struggling to find a job. Is this shocking to you? Yeah, it is shocking to you. But imagine they have more than 8 million people, fresh graduates, to absorb that many students. It's also amazing each year. So what happened? This number is not like from 0 jump to 20%. In the previous years, it's already 15%. And it's a bit of oversupply of the fresh grad. And then also there's a phenomena of the overseas students coming back. And previously, a lot of them stayed, and nowadays, because of geopolitics, because global economic meltdown or slowing down, more supply in this market. And we also observed higher unemployment in the urban area overall. And the highest I've seen, 6.2, which is in the 2020, in the last 5 years, okay, 2020 is 6.2. And now we slowly get to 5.2 unemployment rate. I would say this is not insanely high, but anything above 5% will impact our economy and stability. But I think it's gradually under control. I know you started with a very good morning and hoping that, oh, I will share with you all the glorious and happy stories. But when you look at a number, what do you think? But I have to say, this is not end of the tunnel, end of the world, because the first quarter China economy grew by 4.5%. As the second largest economy globally, have you seen any other big economy can grow in such speed? And also there is a plan of growing the economy by 5% by end of this year. So that means there's still momentum, there's still growth. And also good news to you is there's a huge number of demand and the recruitment is still going. It's just that there's a structural unemployment. And a lot of people who lose their job is in the real estate, is in the e-commerce, or sometimes in some consumer sectors or in importing, exporting, trading business. This is also reflecting that China is changed its structure, economic structure. It's focusing on more innovation, long-term sustainability, and tailored to really help the aging population. Because of that, the people, young people like you who are in the sunrise industry, biotech, or in new energy, in the new productions and manufacturing 4.0 company or sectors, you are in big advantage because you will help to lead new growth, new development. That's why I want to share with you the headcount in the healthcare industry, particularly biotech. When I talk about unemployment, look at here. Oh, sorry, it's so fuzzy. Overall, the R&D organization is planned to increase their headcount by close to 20%. That's good news, very good news. But where do they hire people? They hire people in the research department, they hire people in the development, clinical development, and also in the regulatory, in quality, and in the project management. What does that mean? That means the company is still focusing on innovation, having new product, new pipeline, and bringing more of the drugs or the products into the market faster. If you think about what they're doing, because regulatory is helping to get the product registered to be able to sell, and the project management it's really help facilitate the pipeline development, right? And also if we look at the research, and here early research, technical R&D, know-how transfer, and the preclinical and the safety, they're still hiring and growing, and mostly at 20 to 30%. So you work in the healthcare related investment area, and you work in the biopharma companies, you probably can feel there's still a lot of things going on, activities, and very dynamic. And here for the development, clinical R&D, clinical operations, and clinical safety. So all those areas are related to let's get a new drug to the market faster, cheaper, and safer, right? Oh, here. And talent recruitment in different enterprises. So we segmented them into the biotech, into the local enterprises. So for the large pharma company in China, they normally don't have the early stage development or early research. They have most of that in US or Europe, close to their headquarters. But they might have a smaller development. And if you look at it, we asked them, actually it's AM did the research and survey. Do you still recruit fresh grad? Of course. You see, 65%, close to 65% of the companies still recruit fresh grad, which is good news to you. And there's 35% hiring the people with experience. That means they're still looking at a young talent, develop them, and try to fill in the pipeline. And here, when we look at where do they hire the fresh grad, and you see the red area is the most hiring happening is in the research, in the development and production and all other functions. So those are the areas you have to think about it. Can would you be interested in that area, and are you related to this area? And also we look at, okay, what's the difference if you're a new hire versus you are the a fresh grad and versus your experience, and also what's the difference if you get paid differently if you work for first tier or second tier city, and that kind of thing. We do notice some slight differences. Some differences adjusted compensation because of cost of the living adjustment. So the company tend to be fair to paying the people. And we also notice the top school versus maybe not so top, like an average school. The top schools still command some marginally higher premium. We understand because the tuition is higher, and also they tend to have a self-selection process. But overall, they're still looking at the student or fresh grad own capabilities. So I will share with you later. And how do you stand out in the interviews and in the conversation? Okay, so in terms of the recruitment styles and changes and etc. For the recruitment, but not for the fresh grad, okay. continuous recruitment cycle throughout the year. This is more applied to experienced hire. And previously, they want to do the budgeting, want to set recruitment stages. And nowadays, we notice it's really become continuous, that they have a talent scouting, talent acquisition, or HR team that really focusing on look out and good people and trying to, create a talent inventory. And whenever there's vacancies, they'll just fill in the position. But for the fresh grad, you're still going through the hiring cycles. It's particularly critical for the on-campus recruitment because that's a very good resources, and employer tend to know, which targeted school they want to go. If your alumni had a good reputation, you will also likely get a recurrent recruitment down the road. So when you go back, if you're going to graduate next year, you probably already should polish up your CV and making sure you are participating in the on-campus recruitment and make sure you are already done enough to practice on the interviews, particularly for banking or investment and consulting. The case studies, case interviews is a must. For the other positions, a lot of companies, particularly for multinational companies and the large company or local large companies, they would do assessment. And we call it talent assessment. We call it, you wouldn't call it personality, but it's likely a combination of IQ, EQ, and your capability potentials in a way. So you need to get familiar with that. The more involvement of line managers and other leaders. And previously, it's all done by the HR department. And now because more of those hiring managers and business leaders consider the talent as the critical resources and competitiveness of the company. So they would invest in time to coach, develop the young people. And that's also saying when you do the networking, when you are thinking about a job search, don't just go to the HR department, because normally they spend less than 2 minutes on your CV, looking at the buzzwords and looking at the matchings to the job. Only when you talk to the hiring managers or line managers, you got quite critical information on what do they do, what's the culture like, what are their objectives in the next 1 year to 3 years, and then you will have a much better sense. And also because of those networking, you will sometimes get through the hurdles of the HR. And I'm not saying they're not good. I'm just saying they're very process driven. So you will get some better chance of knowing deeper and also having advantage of sharing your knowledge during the interview. And recruitment popular channels. And I think outside of China, a lot of people use LinkedIn. And for you, again, I have to emphasize on the on-campus recruitment resources. And I must say you're very fortunate, very lucky. You are on the Hong Kong Life Science Society platform that expose you to, I think, over 50 to 100 strong board members, companies or affiliated companies. For that, I think that is a very strong resources. And the LinkedIn, make sure, change your profile. Don't make it too casual. LinkedIn is not a dating website. It's not a pure social media website. So when you put your poster or pictures, make sure it's look professional, right? I have a 21-year-old son, and he's going to graduate next year. He's a rising senior. When I look at his, he asked my advice on how to do a LinkedIn profile. I look at his first LinkedIn shot, like nobody gonna hire you. It's so casual. And he would put his hoodie and very funny faces. I said, have to make it professional, look decent. And you also notice a lot of people sending their posters and sending their articles and through LinkedIn. You could do that too. And you can also navigate like through the networking, you add the people on the LinkedIn, follow them, see what's going on. That's also part of the research for the company you're interested or for the people you are admire or respected. So you know pretty much what's going on. And also a lot of companies sending their job postings via LinkedIn. In China, it's much more limited because LinkedIn is out of business. So unfortunately, people in China cannot access LinkedIn anymore. Of course, there are other means to get around it, but without that special, the VPN, and people in China cannot do it, but you can. So make best usage of LinkedIn, and also Hong Kong LSS platform, and your mentor, and the people you are affiliated with, and even your peers. And what do you do inside China then? Inside China, we wrote an article, and you can also pay attention to our WeChat account, our website, or our LinkedIn account, Become Consulting. We part of a published article, what do you do without LinkedIn? And we got such large volume of readers because people are curious. Without LinkedIn, as job seeker, you can still register other job board. And you can try the 五幺 job, 智联, 那个叫猎聘, and there are other websites you can post your CV. And most importantly, get connected with some recruiters and get connected with the people in China, or after your internship, connected with HR, leave your contact information, sending the message regularly to update what's going on with your life, with your achievement. Okay, don't forget. Okay, don't just think I finished this internship, I'm gone. No, whatever you know and you connected, they are maybe your future reference, could be your friend, could be your mentor, could be your very good resources. Keep in touch with them. That's part of the social networking efforts. And also attending your alumni event, and attending some of the live talk and offline social event. Especially when some companies or organizations doing the career talk, it's important to go. Even they're not collecting the CV, like I said, still giving you the insights for what's going on in the organization. That will show your research and differentiation during the interview, because you know much more than just a desk search. We noticed that referral has the highest conversion rate. You know why? Because normally company look for people, they always go through the internal referral first. And 80% previously, for the lower mid-level positions, close to 80% of them done through referral or internal filling of the job board. The other 20% through the recruitment, through the job posting, through external job postings. So if you go through the job search online, the chances are the job already being referred to someone else, or it's a difficult job, whatever. But of course, a company and nowadays, and they also do this simultaneously. But I always say, with the internal referral, with the people you know, the chances are you will get a job faster and easier. And that's why I emphasize on building the relationship and connecting people and expanding your social network is very important, and maintain it. Yeah, so that's a bit of like a popular channel we're talking about. Okay, so the main focuses of career starters when choosing a job. And we talk about it, looking at a channel, select the type of job you're interested. But when you look at a job, what are you looking at? What's your focus? Who think the compensation is number one important? Don't be shy. Okay, it's very reasonable. Who think the reputation of the company, the brand name of the company is number one? Okay, and who think the location is number one important? Oh, okay. And who think the job flexibility and benefits is the best, like having a cat and have a pet in the office and flexible work hours? Okay. Because there's not much bargaining power you have, right, at that stage. We notice for a lot of young people, their number one focus is compensation. And the number two is is the company brand and the reputation. It has to be a good name, has to be good brand name. And then followed by career development opportunities, learning and then training opportunities. And then we look at an inclusive working environment and a company strategy and vision, which just sounds very reasonable, right? Think about it. Young people, you need to make a living first. Some have to, especially students in the US, they have to pay off the student loan. And for you, you need to rent an apartment and you have to have a means to leave. So they really look at a compensation and the company brand and then brand name. Normally the good company brand and big names, and they give you a good training system, and they have a lot of strong best practice. That's for young people is important to learn as well. And of course, inclusive working environment. This is being increasing as a high importance in the last 5 to 8 years. And diversity, inclusions, and the friendly work environment, and some sort of flexibilities that also indicating the different generations, right? If we look at like job security, I'm very surprised. And employee wellness. Maybe you're young, so you might not care. You as a banker investor, you said I can work 966 and 007, no problem, because I'm young. But when I talk with the senior executive, they always to negotiate the medical insurance. They always negotiate on home trip tickets, especially for those who are experts, right? Different stage, different requirement. And the company, let's say the benefits and stuff. Yeah, I must say, yes, bear in mind, compensation is important for you to sustain your life, especially when you're just fresh out of school. Yet we have to take a balanced view. If this company truly has a vision, has a good practice and a reputation to allow you to learn for the first 3 years. I remember when I first graduated, I worked for GE Capital in their leadership program. It's a management training program. And I must say that first 2-year experience helped me to really did well for the first 10 years. Because I'm in the green belt and I went through the systematic rotation every 6 months. Their SVP is my mentor. And I was participating in some of the critical management meetings, prepared the PPTs and stuff. That is a very critical exposures. And the program like this from a good company and also the structure, the training for the young people, even they give less salary, I think it's worth attending. But normally they would pay high. It's just like over 1,000, 2,000 people compete for one position. And they're likely to go on campus recruitment for the management training programs. And also learning and development and importance of innovation work. It's funny, like this is being ranked low. And I would say for the biotech companies, the pipeline, their R&D innovation could be the lifeline. If they don't have this strong innovation, they all do the fast follower, me too, we too type of product, they're done. And you probably have to polish up your resume in a year time. So think about your context, prioritize. This might not necessarily rank as similar as how you see your job and your focus. But I would say, make sure you can learn as much as you can and make sure you are following the good practice, good company. That will get you the future competitiveness. All right, we talk about compensation, right? We had some data to share with you, how much you are likely to make. So this number is based on the average. We look at from, so the pool, including the undergrad, master graduate, and a PhD graduate students, we put them in the same pool and taking the average number. This is average, not 50th percentile. If you know, you all know the statistics, right? There's the 25th quartile basis, 25th, 5th, 75th, and the highest. So we take the mid-range of the pool and look at their salary. Of course, and that comes with also a range of the compensation. So the midpoint for the research in the biotech space is from 105K RMB to 307K RMB. So the highest is 3 times more than the lower range. Do you know why?
They got the PhD.
Exactly. The PhD make them the most than the undergrad. Similar pattern, but less so in the product and the supporting functions. Because in the supporting functions, your functional expertise will be less differentiative. Like we all do HR, and you are the PhD in psychology. I'm the master or undergrad in the HR. So it's more involved in the operational aspects. It's more of a how can you get things done rather than my functional expertise, right? And as we move down to development, 110K to 278. And production has a lower side because we're also including some of the day shift and the shift jobs, 96K and 261K. Supporting functions that are including finance, HR, IT, etc., 106K to 270K. And now, yeah, almost like roughly 2.5 times to 3 times, depends on the degree you're getting. So that means are you going to get a PhD in order to get it 3 times more? Really depends, because you have to think about opportunity cost, right? By the time you graduated, your classmate from undergrad already become your manager. But in the R&D space, and you always need to have a PhD degree in order to advance to the chief science officer, chief medical officer, because that's highly expertise driven. Does this surprise you? How does this compare to Hong Kong? Similar, higher?
I think it's much lower.
This is much lower, but because this is a midpoint. Like I said, I'm taking the mid-range and also look at the spread. And you should aim to the 75th percentile. This is the 5th percentile. This is the media. But I give you the rough idea of how average Joe, average Mary making out of the school. And if you aim to the 75th percentile, you might look, could be double, could be even triple. And for people who get investment banking, who land on some really coveted jobs, possible. But that's roughly the range for the average. And we also talk about a career development path. On average in US, it takes 25 years for a fresh grad to become a general manager or senior vice president. In China, we are having very condensed, in China or Greater China, we're having much condensed the cycle, which is between 15 years, around 15 years. In some local companies or in some startup companies, even less than 10 years. I worked with 3 companies funded by the young scientists who were born in the 90s, meaning they're just over 30 years old. They already become a founder and CEO of the company. But that's a rare case. It's not the normal situation. But could be, well, who knows? Maybe you want to fund your own company and you become the founder and at a young age. But think about even their founder or even they're managing the company, how do they see their career path? Which we think normally there are 2 career paths. One is the specialist. The specialist who we call high professional. They are not really managing a lot of people, but they are known and specialized in their expertise, like chef, right? Michelin star chef, like the designers, like the chief scientific officers. And they're very good in their own areas, like chief science officers know discovering, screening the molecules. That would ensure the whole pipeline down the road. Or they're very good at the technologies or techniques in gene therapy, cell therapy, or the latest. but they're not good at managing people or fundraising or doing all the administrative stuff. But think about what you enjoy. And I've seen a lot of scientists who wants to be CEO, but get so frustrated because they're either too detail oriented or they're not interested in talking to the fundraising and all the admin things. But most of the people will be interested climbing the ladder and grow their career from the entry-level individual contributor to the manager, director, VP, and the CEO. Those terminology you'll gradually get used to once you work more in the corporate. It's not like, kind of like in a university. If you want to be, the highest is the university president, but you start with a lecturer, assistant professor, associate professor, professor, tenure professor, department head, dean of the school, president, right? That's also like ladders and you have to climb. But in a corporate world, each level you transition to means more of the people responsibility, means more of your leadership and management capabilities. And for instance, at your level, you are very much valued at your individual contribution, your execution, and your learning ability to make sure you help get things done. So building up your expertise, building up your personal capabilities and functional expertise is number one priorities. Of course, in the meantime, you are willing to taking the leadership work and voluntary work or management work and coordinations. That's already showing your willingness, the ability to become a leader. And once you've been promoted as a leader, like a manager, you already manage a group of 5 to 6 people, or scientists and analysts, or the production team. And what do? You have to motivate. That's called a supervisory work. So here you need to really having achieve the results, make sure the team listen to you, motivate them, get things done. And then they say, okay, you got promoted as a director. You are the clinical director. What do then? You manage a bigger team and you're expanding your horizon. You have to deal with the external team, KOL, physicians, and you also look at a P&L. Should I hire? Should I fire? Should I manage, make sure our output and the cost structures efficiently? You might want to look at your financial statement. And then you become the vice president. That is level below the CEOs, et cetera. And throughout that process, you will notice your technical skill, at some point reach the top and then gradually plateaued, where your management capability is like this increasing and going up. A lot of the CEO I'm hiring, they're not necessarily the best technically. They're not necessarily the top chief marketing or medical officer, but they are the best in terms of bring people together, motivate and find and retain the best people. That's where we see the differences. Again, like I said, at the moment, you should be like a sponge, absorb as much information, learn as much as you can, be curious, and to, compete not only your peers, but also the AI and a lot of new technologies. Okay, this is what I'm going to share with you. So when we hire Carolyn, we also ask her to do this assessment. Ultimately, when I have 2 CVs, let's say 2 of you graduate from the same class, similar grades and similar focus, who should I hire? I only have 1 headcount. What do I do then? I have to look at who has a potential to go further and who has a right fit, because you come from different family, different perspective. That's a lot of company using the psychometric evaluation or leadership team assessment. Some of you already done MBTI, some done maybe other type of assessment, or even doing the horoscope, whatever. That's just a way of a big data and help to understand the person's innate traits, value. Awareness of self-management. We talk about career motives. How do you plan your career? Overall, we see there are 4 types of career motives. One we called expert. And this type of motive or the career intention is that you prefer to stay in one area, become expert, and learn really much and deep. That's where we see a scientist or someone who are having this internal drive, want to be seen as the best in this subject matter. And oftentimes people strong with expertise orientation would stay in the job for at least 8 years, 8 to 10 years, because it takes time to build expertise. And linear, I think it's a bit of external orientation benchmarked by, okay, am I getting the highest title? Am I getting the higher pay? Whenever there are opportunities coming, the person will leave. But with the linear growth progression, the person normally get a faster promotion because the person is more focusing on this. And I'm not saying it's not good. It's just saying how you're motivated. The people who are more driven by the title reputation, actually likely get a promotion faster because that's what they're cared for. But with that, we can see like scientists become medical, become the CMO, that kind of track. That's what I call the linear growth. A lot of our organizations previously built people like this. If you look at, the president, we look at a president and CEO. For sales organizations, most of them coming from the sales rep and ascending to the district sales manager, regional sales manager, business unit manager, VP of sales, and become a general manager. That's very typical linear path. Transitory. Transitory means it still has a way up, but it goes zigzag or spiral. Oh, sorry, I should say this is a spiral. Spiral is like you go this spiraling up. It also means that the person has more of a broad learning interest. Although want to be promoted, but interesting in experience a more broader connected area to be more well-rounded. Take an example of what I just said. You want to be general manager, instead of just taking the sales job, also try the HR functions, and just go into regulatory, government relations, and then eventually become the general manager. And I think company value more and more this type of expertise, like rotational experience, to help to have a broader understanding to become more inclusive, similar to you. And if you want to be a good research scientist, don't just stuck with biology or chemistry, and also have to think about, okay, what about the pharmacology? What about the CMC? What about a regulatory? And then you have a broader sense of how the journey being connected. For that, I think the person normally would change job around 5 years. And a transitory is what I call entrepreneurial spirit. This type of career motive, interested in something new, build something from scratch, change something or turn around. But as soon as they're being settled, the person get bored, want to move on to something new. That's transitory, a more entrepreneurial risk-taking spirit. You might not know, but you have to know or bear in mind what keeps you excited, and always reflect. Maybe you're one of the type, or you could be a combination of the type. Like I am the combination of the expert and the transitory. And that's why I change job every 11 years. So I stayed with Colferry 11 years. Then I stayed with my previous company as a leadership consultant for 11 years. So likely I will stay with this company for more than 11 years. So what happened? Because I really value the expertise. I learned a lot. First learned leadership consulting, exposed to all kinds of, assessment, coaching, and everything. Then I stayed with executive search for 11 years, build the team, build the reputation, know the industry inside out. And because this transitory thinking, I always want to try something new, innovative, prompt me to really determined start a new company. So you have to understand your career motive, what really make you drive you and support your decision. right? And now I must talk about emotional competency and then social adaptabilities. The part of the career motive actually is more innate. You explained, what do you really want? But this part and determine how far you can go. And also what we are looking at, or a lot of companies looking at. The IQ is important, the verbal, logical, and numeric. It determines how you problem solve, how fast can you problem solve. But it cannot explain why some people love learning, reading hundreds of books every year, and then some people with a similar IQ just don't interested. So here, we look at successful profile for biotech CEOs or biotech profiles. Very high ambiguity tolerance and very high in the social awareness and also in this one in empathy. What does that mean? Because in the biotech environment, there are always uncertainties. The things got thrown on your laps, changing, moving all the time. If you hate it, if you like structure, this is not an environment for you. And also talking about social awareness and empathy. You got to be understandable what's going on, and especially during the research. It's not individual work, and it involved so many teams and departments, connecting people, aware what's going on, and motivate them, or you can even demotivate them. Those are the things we call emotional competencies. Those are the dividing point and determine why someone are successful, not successful. Can those be developed? Yes. Otherwise, we're going to be out of job if nobody can be developed. But a lot of those competencies or traits are hard to develop, like empathy, like ambiguity tolerance, because it has already been set and shaped before you become a grown-up. So if you want to intentionally develop, possible, but it takes a lot of efforts and a lot of tenacious, persistence. That's why we have a coach, and that's why you need to relook. At least you do something, keep doing something for more than 21 days to have your neural strand form the new link, right? Break the old patterns. And the situational adaptability, this actually is the potential. It's testing the potential. It means if you are thrown into the first time situation, how can you survive? Can you leverage what you learned before, apply to the new situation? And here, when we combine, you will notice like ambiguity tolerance and interpersonal adaptability, mental agility, a willingness to accept the challenges to solve problems. And this combined can be an indicator. What's the potential you have? Of course, and this is just a way to look at the person's assessing them, the potential. But my advice to you is you're taking a lot of assessment that you can take, but do understand what is your core competencies or what are your true emotional intelligences. And there are got to be, ups and downs. Nobody's perfect. Nobody can be high all the time. Look at what you're really doing well and look at what are the gap areas you want to focus or to improve. I always say focus on your strength and then leverage and compensate some of the weak areas. For the weak areas, you can develop and just make it not a derailer, can not become the factor that fail you. Like I said, it can be changed, can be developed, but it has to require intentional notice. And if you know what type of person you are, what kind of style you are, the good news is you know how to work with people. You know how to control your emotion, and therefore you will become successfully socially. And so that's why I'm plant the seeds in you. And as you go into different jobs and when you grow, you would realize more and more company would ask you to take assessments, not just for deciding if they hire you, if they put you on the high pro or regular program, but also help you to understand better who you are. And when I look at a competency, actually, interestingly, competency sometimes can be shaped based on external environment. And I did my assessment when I first entered a company years ago. And after 4 years, and I did again, my competency somehow shifted a bit in terms of the task focus and the decision-making speed, because it is influenced by your external environment. Like when some people work in the multinational versus working in the local company for several years, you will find there's some changes, but it reflecting the social style, adapting to the social style. But we need to understand deep down our value. Do I really know what I want? Do I really know who I am when I close the door? Right? Okay. So when you have some idea about what you want, what you like, and we think about how do we lead ourselves, lead others. And oftentimes people always say, my company doesn't give me opportunities, or my parents didn't give me opportunities, or school didn't give me opportunities. But we each own our own job and career by ourselves. If you really wanted something, and you'll get it. But it's not just waiting for someone to give it to you, right? An opportunity always favor the prepared mind. So what I'm saying is leading your own emotional and social competencies and leading your own personal preferences and drivers. What really make you excited? This job versus the other job, and this career versus the other career, and lead others. And at this time, and you might not have authority to be the manager or leading other people, but think about it. At the school, you do the project, you do, like today, you're orchestrating, you be the MC of the program. This in a way demonstrates your willingness to become the leader and the potential to become the leader. Leader is lead by influence, not by title. So when you're in the company, it doesn't matter you're an intern or you are just a regular employee, always find a way to bring people together to make yourself helpful and useful. And that I think will help you go far. All right, we come to the last page. I know my time is limited. The career development advice, again, like I said, even you're trying to land your first job, but think a bit about mid-term, long-term. And when you talk with the companies, when you're thinking about the options of the jobs, really thinking about what you like. Because young people like you have choices, not like us before, limited job opportunity or limited funding. You have to get something that pay you to support the life. You still have choices. And then don't change job blindly, or don't take the job blindly simply because everybody else is doing it. And this you will learn more as you get a job. And I don't like people change job very often, because that means they could not get things done. And especially for senior leader, it takes them at least 3 to 4 years to implement the strategy. And so for you, at least take you a year to see your results, to be fast in half a year. But you really make sure you have to get it done. And yeah, okay, long-term learning, lifelong learning, curiosity. Only when you're curious, you expand yourself. And even when I select the senior people, I look at your curiosities, because curiosity determines if you're open-minded. Otherwise, we're always stuck with the similar things. Stop using your phone in the meetings. Maybe I'm too old typed, but I just think if you get distracted, you think you're multitasking, actually you waste more time. Your brain gets screwed. And stop using your phone, be more concentrated, you'll be more efficient. And also do not use the phone the first thing when you wake up in the morning, and it messes up with your brain wave. And learn to develop personal relationship, particularly useful during the job search, and connect yourself, ask questions, go into the companies and get your parents, get your mentor, get the people, refer you, talk to them. I once told my son when he was in New York, I said, meet 2 people per day, have coffee or have lunch or whatever, and I pay for it. Just show me the list. I mean, he doesn't like it at the beginning because he want to hang out with his classmates, but he tried for a week since it's free of charge. But he felt he learned so much. But don't be so goal-oriented. Think, I meet you, you need to give me a job. No, nobody gonna like it. People can see through right away. I mean, just try to be curious and try to learn something. You'll be amazed and you will learn something every day. And oh yeah, this is later on. Actively ask for promotion or salary increase when your contribution increases. But I think at the moment you don't have a lot of bargaining power, and also for the entry level pay is quite standard. What I'm saying is only when you in the company contributed a lot and try to make sure that you're fairly compensated and your development has been recognized. That's what I mean. So with that, I'm going to conclude my presentation. And I hope the best luck to your internship in China and in Hong Kong. And once again, you own your own development, and you have to know who you are and what make you very excited and motivated. And then there's a bright future ahead of you. Thank you very much.
All right, so thank you, Gladdy, for the insightful sharing. Now it's Q&A time, and if you have a question, could you please raise your hand and I'll give you the mic.
So my colleague Carolyn can also help with the Q&A.
All right. And participants in HK, if you have any questions, please type it in the Zoom chat box and we'll relay it for you. All right, so any questions? This is for the Zoom.
I want to ask, like, do you see any quality differences between like students in mainland and also maybe students from Hong Kong or maybe from other countries? And also, is there any maybe some more like attractive qualities that Hong Kong student may have, like which the biotech company like more?
You said correlation or quality?
Qualities.
Okay.
The quality differences.
Yeah, quality difference between mainland and Hong Kong. Well, I do see the differences because in China, the education system make the student very hardworking, very good at solving particular problems, finding a solution, good at solutions. So I find a lot of Chinese scientists or like PhD student and master degree student, they're good at solving particular design problems. And I think they're hardworking, but they're lacking of out-of-box thinking. They're just following the certain instructions. That is quite dominant theme. But when I look at Hong Kong student or even student coming from outside, educated overseas, they tend to be more vocal. They can share their thinking, or when they do some projects, I tend to see different approaches and dare to try different approaches in a way, looking for alternatives and looking for different solutions, more creative. I'm not saying Chinese students are not creative. I'm just thinking they are being set in a way just to get the regular things done. But they have very high accountabilities. And so the Hong Kong students and the others, and with the training and development in place, more open-minded and more creative. That's what I see. Also, if you're coming for Hong Kong student coming to China, there are always some challenge with language, unless you come into the Pearl Delta area where Cantonese is also being spoken. A lot of the biotech company in, like I said, the other 3 clusters close to Shanghai, Beijing, or Chengdu, Wuhan, they prefer Mandarin speaking. Even English speaking can be struggling. And recently I hired the very senior people like a CMO. They also require a person can speak Mandarin. So Mandarin speaking is advantage and disadvantage. If you know Mandarin, good. If you don't know, try to learn some. Just like how I integrated with the Shanghainese community when I first came back, that was in 2005, and that was the first time. During the lunchtime, everybody speak Chinese, I'm clueless what's going on. So to fit in the culture, fit into the work environment and language is one thing. And secondly, I think it's a work attitude. I think in Asia, like Singaporean, Hong Kongese, still hardworking relatively to European, to the other countries. But for China, it's such hardworking culture. I mentioned about a 966 and 007 kind of, 966, right? And when my son first came back here for internship, because he worked for a robotic company, they do the brain-computer interface, right? Competing with Elon Musk. The supervisor said, okay, you come here at 9, you leave by 7. It's like, really? But that's normal. So you probably have to sacrifice and give up some of the rules we learned in the more advanced the countries, like XYZ holidays, and like you cannot call me during the weekend, you cannot bother me during the holidays. So that's a bit of a work-life balance requirement we're looking at, especially for people coming to China to work. After all, China is super competitive. There's so many kids who don't have jobs, they're looking for jobs. So that's what I see obvious differences.
Thank you.
So hi, my name is Jackie. So I actually want to focus on the follow-up of your question, of your answer. So I actually experience a lot of Mandarin speaking difficulties when I'm doing my job, because a lot of mainland universities, they teach the biology class in Chinese. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of jargons like gene therapies, the molecules and chemicals. It's really difficult to have a translation back to the English. So usually when I do the presentation, I'll just prefer to speak in English to my boss. So I was wondering, so there will be a lot of initiatives from China saying a lot of Hong Kong people could be potentially good candidates going to Greater Bay Area or going back to mainland for work. So I was wondering what would be the, in a bigger perspective, what would be some pulling factors for the Chinese or for the Hong Kong people to enter the workforce of China market, and especially in biotech industry? Because when I was focusing in the sector like finance or investment, I feel like Hong Kong would be more competitive,
yeah,
and have more opportunities there. But speaking of China, so what could be some potential pulling force for us to enter in the biotech industry?
Yes, and I agree with you for investment job, banking, previously entertainment. Hong Kong is a hub. Hong Kong is the closest international finance market and capital market. And also because the tax benefit and everything, it continues things, Hong Kong reunited with China, with mainland, it's continued to be the case. But why so many people coming to China, not only Hong Kongese, Singaporean people who, overseas returnees from US and Europe, I think it's the opportunities. The opportunities for the senior people, obviously they make a whole lot more pay than when they're staying in the Europe and US. And Hong Kong's different because Hong Kong has a tax benefit. And let's put in a compensation aside. For a lot of people, compensation is secondary. If you do well, you will be paid fairly. And when I see opportunity, it's innovation opportunity. It's a growth opportunities. And imagine for the biotech industry, there's first wave when we talk about PD-1, and then at that point, more than 40 companies doing the trial of a PD-1. And then we talk about gene therapy, cell therapy, and I also mentioned about the AI, the robotics, and the chips and the new manufacturings. It's such huge market and with so many innovations. And the company are catching up. Amount of investment, a number of companies doing that is amazing. So Hong Kong, Singapore, and other markets, comfortable but limited opportunity of that. Of course, and I think there are always some competitions there, but if people looking at the growth potentials, here still is the place. Of course, and I think there's some setback, and during the pandemic, people left And there are also the geopolitics impacting the growth of certain industry, like semiconductors, like AI, especially in the hardware. And there are also isolations, the decoupling going on. But imagine which country in the world can still grow at 4.5 to 5%. If you read McKinsey's article, it was really the hot of the press, and 2.5 months ago, the global CEO of McKinsey said, the next China is China. If we look at China grow just by the pure 4% in 2020, it will be the combination of the economy of India, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Japan, right? And as long as continue to grow, there will be a huge opportunities existing, and also the funding and investment opportunities, plus the aging populations. And by 2023, oh no, actually 2040, and more than 600 million people are going to be over 60 years old. And that also creates the areas for biotech advancement, for the needs of healthcare. So those are all the relevant attracting the young people to come. Of course, coming initially is always painful. And but I guess you just have to invest the time to learn a bit. And it's not that difficult. When I first came back from US to China, I'm also had a lot of challenge to speak certain terminologies in Chinese, because I was educated, learned in English, but it's not difficult. And then take a while, you can just switch back and forth.
All right, so we're out of time, but thank you for all the questions, and thank you, Gladdy, once again. So on behalf of the Hong Kong Life Sciences Society, I would like to offer Ms Gladdy He a gift as a token of our appreciation for coming today.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Can you have a photo?
Yes,
Maybe?
yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's try to, get away from the light.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
One, two, three. One more. One, two, three. That's great.
Thank you. Oh,
It's a
okay.
chocolate.
Chocolate. Who wouldn't love chocolate? Thank you very much.
So I hope you all enjoyed the sharing today. Next week, we will have another sharing session by Mr. Michael Chu, Associate Director of Links International, to talk about the career landscape in Hong Kong. So if you haven't registered for it yet, please visit the Hong Kong Life Sciences Society social media platforms for details, and remember to join our next session. So thank you all across Shanghai and Hong Kong for joining today's discussion. Please have a nice weekend.